it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We talk running, fitness, mental health, and so many more topics. As the founder of a youth running program, I approach all of our conversations with our youth athletes in mind and kind of have a focus around those things. But as you will see, we are finding that all of these topics relate to runners and people who like to move and do fitness or anything like that. Relates to everybody. Check it out. Hey, it's Coach Tori.
And Jeff.
And this is Raising Runners. And today we have a Jeff's special. I thought of that on my way down here. I was like, oh, that sounds so funny. But yeah, that's what we should call these episodes, where you're kind of driving the chat. You've done all the research, and it's kind of your show today. So it's a Jeff special.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling the pressure suddenly.
Yeah. But so anyway, I didn't even tell people what you were going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the marathon, history, how to train for one, common pitfalls, and then also just talking about some great athletes, maybe a little history on some of the big marathons. But before we get into that, let's do, a little quick update. You just ran a half marathon, kind of an impromptu half in Jacksonville, Florida. How'd it go?
I did.
I know how it went, but
it went pretty much according to plan. As far as I was concerned, the temperature was about 65 at start time, which is probably a little warm, but it's pretty close to ideal for me. And my absolute best goal I could have assumed was maybe running 7.5-minute miles the whole way. I averaged 7:36. So it was pretty close to my absolute max. So that comes out to about an hour and 39 minutes and some odd seconds. So, so I was really pleased. I'm going to have to now decide whether I'm partway through a marathon training program, and do I just want to jump into like week 8 of a 16-week program and then do a marathon in like another 8 weeks, or start over from step 1 on a marathon program and do it in April. So we'll see. We'll talk about it. I know I'm still committed to do one with you in like April, May timeframe.
Yes, I believe it's early May. Where are you going to find a February marathon? I feel like there's not many.
Well, from this research, there's 800 to 2,500 marathons around the world. So, and when I was looking just for the half marathon in Jacksonville, I did see there was probably 5 or 6 choices I could have done for other half marathons. And as you probably know, anytime there's a half marathon, there's almost always a marathon that same day for that same thing. So, there's a lot. I'm shocked at how many there are, and certainly down in the South, even in the wintertime, there are marathons and half marathons to do.
Well, there you go. All right. Yeah. It just feels like there's nothing, I guess, because I'm thinking just around me, like there's nothing happening throughout the winter, but I guess that's not true.
That's not true. Yeah, there are other places in the U.S. I'm not going outside the U.S. to do a marathon.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right.
How about you? What's your update? You ran this weekend too?
I did. Well, my update currently is I'm sick. I feel like I'm always Eeyoring all over this podcast lately. I feel like I managed to dodge around some of the other sicknesses in the house, and it finally got me. So I apologize for potential sniffles, because I know that is just an annoying sound. I can't stand it. I also apologize for me drinking tea, and I'm also apologizing because I'm not supposed to be apologizing anymore.
Oh, and while we're on apologies, by the way, this is my public apology for missing last week's podcast. Yeah. So for anyone who noticed that I wasn't on last week, and that was all 100% on me, I was driving to Florida, and we always do Wednesday, and somehow this was on a Monday. I just didn't connect the dots. Totally on me, 100% apology. I hope you accept it.
Yes, Jeff ditched us all while he was driving down to the beautiful beaches of Florida. But yeah, so update, I'm sick, boo-hoo. But I did run this weekend, which I think we talked about the last time we recorded, that we're doing the 5K winter series that's local to us. super small races. I mean, like 60 to maybe 100 people by the end of the season in the race. But again, it's like people who are serious about running, obviously, because you're doing a small race. There's no medals. There's no like swag. There's none of that stuff. You get your timer. They have the course. It's USATF certified 5K usually. And yeah, and you're out there and you're just running in the cold. So
Yeah, you
yeah,
got to
so
be
I
pretty
just
hard. You got to be pretty hardcore to go out in January and do. I mean, it's December now, but you know they have them in January and February too. It's you got to be pretty hardcore to go out and do these races.
there was a couple in the teens last year. The weather, we had pretty decent weather. I think there was one that was like super cold, but yeah, there was definitely some teens. We've had some rainy, flurry kind of conditions. So yeah, for sure it is it is kind of tense, but we were lucky. We had gorgeous, weirdly gorgeous weather for here in December. It was like kind of toasty. But yeah, so woke up, was starting to feel like we're a little sick. My son was sick before me, of course. But he woke up and was ready to go. So we made it to the 5K. We did the stroller, so kind of pushed him along. I kind of expected to go super slow because I have the broken rib injury that is slowly but surely healing as well. So I hadn't been running. So I was planning on doing like 10-minute miles. I ran like 9-minute miles, which felt pretty good. But then we found out that the course was short. So we ran like 2.88. So it was a
record time.
It was a quick little, well, right. And I was like, this is also my slowest 5K since I've had James. And it was still short. So like, yikes. So there's a lot of work to be done on my end. I was kind of hoping that was going to kickstart my like back into running, because I really, as I've also always complained on the show, struggled with scheduling, but I've been trying to really commit to this 5 a.m. wake up to at least get some kind of training, whether it is some strength or running or biking, before I have to like do, adult life things in the morning. And that's just not been happening now that we're sick. And, so I'm hoping it gets back on track soon.
Well, hopefully this marathon series discussion, all of the history and stuff will inspire you to get up every morning and do your workouts.
Yeah. It's never for like lack of inspiration or motivation. Honestly, it's when, because like, Josh works late, he's at work right now. So like when I'm going to bed at like midnight, and then I'm like, I have to get up at 5, and then I have to like be a pleasant person parenting our son all day. It's like, yeah. So anyway, yes, it might be. Moving on from my little pity party.
Yes. All right, let's jump into the marathon then. Let's jump into marathon. Let's start with the history of the marathon.
Ooh, let's hear it, because I
Ready
think
to
like
roll?
this might be something people know, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard this story before. So with the history of marathon, let's go way back to 490 BCE, like back in the dinosaur time frame.
Love dinosaurs.
Yes, yeah. So back then there was a war between Greece and the Persians, and there was a battle of Marathon, right? So it's a town, and the Greeks were winning that battle, and they sent Phidippides. I think I've pronounced that correctly, but it's a rough one. To run from Marathon to Athens to report to the assembly that they had won. So he's assigned this task. He runs the 26 miles from Marathon to Athens, breaks into the assembly, announces, "We won!" and unfortunately then collapses and dies.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I will say there are multiple versions of this story, and I guess when you're dealing with something that's 2,400 years old, it could be a little sketchy. But anyway, I mean, the first guy that did a marathon died. That probably should have been the indication that maybe they should have stopped then, right? I'm not sure why it came back from the first guy doing it dying, but somehow it did come back from that small beginnings. And by the way, I think the Persians and the Greeks, they must have had a bunch of wars, because 10 years later, in 480 BCE, this is a little bit of a movie reference for you, there was a battle between the Greeks and the Persians, and Leonidas, does that ring a bell?
Is this Sparta?
That's not the name of the movie.
Oh, 300.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so that battle inspired the movie 300, where basically Leonidas, he was betrayed by a fellow Greek citizen who told Xerxes about a path that could flank him, flank Leonidas's Greek army and win that battle. So supposedly 300 of them stayed behind to fight off the Persian army, which was anywhere from 70 to 300,000 men. And the Greek army was only 7,000 to start with, and somewhere between 300 and 1,400 at the time of this Battle of the 300. So again, it's I'll put it in a good movie category. We should have put that on the list of movies to review.
It's not a running movie.
Yeah, now we're going to jump ahead. Well, there is a little bit of running in it, but we could reference back to the marathon. Um, so now we're going to jump ahead to 1896. So we're getting back to modern times. That's the beginning of the modern Olympics, and they happen to be in Athens. So the committee that's basically establishing the events, they wanted to have an event that would sort of go back to Greek history and sort of honor the ancient Greece. And so they basically, I guess, selected the marathon to be that sort of featured event. So it was about a 26-mile run, won by Spyridon, and 2 hours and 58 minutes and 50 seconds, which I still can't beat today.
I'm kind
So
of shocked it was so fast.
yeah, the guy he was motoring, man.
Wow.
And think what the training techniques may have been back then, right?
That's why I'm shocked.
Yeah, and I'm sure the shoes weren't very good either.
No, he's probably wearing sandals and like a
Yeah, yeah.
skirt, right?
No, yeah. So that's sort of the beginning of the I'll call it the Olympics in the marathon. And by the way, 1 year later in 1897, the Boston Marathon had its first Boston Marathon, and it is now the world's longest running consecutive annual marathon. So little history there. So now we've referenced 300. Now we've covered off the Battle of Marathon. So we're now into sort of modern times. The only thing I would mention else about the marathon, the official distance of the 26.2, kind of a funny being weird way this one came about in the 1908 Olympics in London. They wanted the race to end right in front of the royal box, so they added 200, the 0.2 to get it to end at the royal box, and that became the official distance for the marathon is the 26.2. So
Oh,
unlike all these other
wow.
things that are sort of like, the 10K, all these things that have official distances, this one is just a random. Someone decided they wanted it to be a little bit longer to finish in a certain spot, and that became the official distance from that point forward.
I assumed it was because they were measuring in kilometers. Wow.
No,
Okay.
no, it doesn't even round off to like a nice even kilometer either.
I guess I
Uh,
never paid attention to that.
yeah. So that's sort of the early history of the marathon. Yeah, then we're going to jump ahead to 1984. What's notable about that one is that is the first year that women were allowed to do the marathon. Because women, they really can't run that far. They may die if they do. Their
Isn't it
uterus
your
may fall
uterus
out.
falls? Yeah, I heard that one.
Yeah, so somehow in 1984 they decided that wouldn't happen anymore. So Joan Benoit, an American, did win the first um, women's marathon. I did see a bit of that, not in person, on TV. 2 hours and 24 minutes and 52 seconds. Um,
Wow.
a very impressive time.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a bunch of other interesting marathons. As we get into the history, this is the last thing I was going to mention. There's five I found to be the most interesting. The Great Wall Marathon, um, the Big Five Marathon, which is in like a South African safari, the Great Tibetan Marathon, which is in at altitude of 11,000 feet, and the Polar Circle Marathon, which is on the polar ice cap in Greenland. So which of those are you going to pick to do in the future? China, Great Wall, the Safari, the the mountain, 11,000 feet, or the polar circle?
It would have to be between mountain, maybe, or Great Wall, because that sounds pretty cool. It's definitely not the safari, because I've seen way too many videos of people getting eaten on like safari rides. So like not a chance. And the polar ice caps, no thanks.
Yeah, I don't think I would pick the polar ice cap. And Greenland, I mean, it that is a misnomer. It's obviously it should be named Iceland, and Iceland should be
Right.
named Greenland. But yeah, I would pick the Great Wall as well. I don't think I
Nope.
want to. I don't know if I want to run at 11,000 feet.
Because
Sounds
it
like it's
depends
just
what it looks like.
yeah, it might be beautiful. It just seems like it's a recipe for getting some kind of
Like
asphyxia. Was it what is
altitude. Yeah,
altitude
altitude
sickness? Yeah.
sickness and all that. Yeah, yeah. I guess 11. I wasn't. I'm like, I can't remember, because people climb up to like 14,000 feet, like just on a day hike, I
Yeah,
think.
it's like that's almost 2 miles high, right? 11,000 feet. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if you go into Denver, isn't that like it's called Mile High Stadium? So I assume you're in the mile range in
Oh
height.
wow, that's some perspective.
So I'm
Okay.
assuming that, and Mount Everest is what 25,000 feet, somewhere in that range. So
Yeah.
about halfway up Mount Everest.
Yeah, maybe not.
All right, okay. So let's go with some a couple marathon statistics, right? So there are a lot of marathons. I think I mentioned this. Like when you say, "Well, are you going to find one?" There's
Yeah.
somewhere between. I mean, there's not an official number. I saw a couple different sites. Some said 800 marathons globally, worldwide. I'm sorry, annually, to somewhere around 2,500 plus. So there's a lot of marathons. There's about 1.1 to 1.3 million people finish a marathon each year. Um, the average finishing time in the 4 hours and 32 minutes, which gives me hope. I think I have beaten that, so I am better than average.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. In the U.S., if you want to be in the top 1%, you got to run a 2:49. So that's way out of my league. If you want to be in the top 10%, you got to run a 3:24 marathon.
That's within reach.
Yeah, that's probably outside my range. I mean, I'm training right now. I'd say I'm training to do a 3:30, even though I don't know if I can do a 3:30. I'm just hoping I can have enough cushion to then qualify for Boston. Um, but that's still that gives you sort of some perspective. It does drop off a lot from 1 to 10. You go from 2:49 to 3:24. Marathons, 35% of marathoners are women. Okay,
Hey,
globally and in the
I kind
U.S.
of would have thought it was 50-50,
Yeah,
but
45% in the
globally.
U.S. So
Okay, so
that's
closer to what I
globally.
thought.
I think there's less globally than there is in the U.S. The U.S. with women, U.S. women are strong. They go.
Hey.
Yes. Let's see. Can you name me the 6 marathon majors?
Yes, I can when I'm not sick, because I actually just recorded a small thing about them. We got Chicago, New York, Boston,
Yep.
Tokyo, Berlin.
Did you say London?
No, I didn't say London. I was like, I
Okay.
have five. Why do I only have yeah, I'm sorry, anyone that's like confused about the dead air. That's me thinking.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Uh,
So there's three of the 6 marathon majors. There's three in the U.S.: Boston, Chicago, New York, and then globally, it's Tokyo, Berlin. That's in Germany, obviously, and in London. Just to give you a perspective on how big those events are. So, and most of them, all of them have caps on them. They do. It's a lottery system to get in, or Boston it's a qualifying time. But New York City is 53,000 participants. Paris, which wasn't mentioned, somehow Paris gets sort of screwed. It's not a marathon major, but it's one of the bigger marathons. 52,000. London 48,000. Berlin 47,000. Chicago 39. Boston 30. Tokyo 30. So there's a lot. Just for our local perspective, Philadelphia, we have about 10,000 in the Philadelphia Marathon.
wow.
That places us eighth in the U.S. for U.S. marathons. So
And I heard rumor that Sydney might be number 7 if they make a 7.
yeah, there is
Sydney Marathon.
that is the rumor, and that is I think they're like sort of a junior member. You can get like sort of a junior star We're
Oh, I
finishing that
didn't
one
know
over the
that.
next year. I think there's some kind of like a year or two, I won't call it probation period, but there's some period where they just it's in but not really in, and then it's officially in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So um just to give some people perspective, and I'll be getting out of history in a moment. We can get into training. So this is the last on the history stuff. So world record, um back in 1908. So I'll start with men's. Back in 1908 was 2:55. In 2023, it's 2 hours and 35 seconds. We'll get to that in a minute. For the women, in 1926, it was 3:40, and it's come down all the way down to 2:11 in 2023. Um, to give you some perspective, I guess, how dominant Kenya is and Ethiopia is in running marathons. So since 19 and from 1908 to 2002, so for a 94-year period, right? The world record was lowered 43 times. In those 43 times, 0 times was that via a Kenyan runner, and only 3 times was it an Ethiopian runner. So prior to 2002, only 3 times was it Kenyan or Ethiopian in the 43 times it happened. Since 2002, 21-year period, it's been lowered 9 times, 7 times by a Kenyan runner, 2 times by an Ethiopian runner, and no one else in the world has lowered the world record besides those 2 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. The other thing on the world record, I might rattle off those numbers real quick. The one thing you would notice if you did the math is women back in 1926, their world record was about 148% of the men. So they were 48% slower than men. In 2023, it's down to 109%. So the women are getting faster, closing the gap on the men. So I'm waiting
Nice.
for it to be 1-to-1. The other thing about the Kenyan runners, I guess the other thing I'll mention about them, just to, again, because Kenya and Ethiopia dominate, the top 25 men who have all-time marathon times, right? So for example, Kipchoge's in there once, Kelvin Kiptum's in there once, of the 25 people. 12 are Kenyan, including Kipchoge and Kiptum. 11 are Ethiopian, 1 Tanzanian, and 1 Belgian. So 23 of the top 25 marathoners of all time have been Kenyan or Ethiopian. On the women, very similar. Of the 25 top women marathoners of all time, 8 Kenyan, 14 Ethiopian, 1 the Netherlands, which is Safan Hassan. She was actually born in Ethiopia, I believe, and immigrated to the Netherlands. 1 Great Britain, Paula Ratcliffe, we'll get to her in a minute, and 1 Israeli. So they're 22 out of 25 top athletes are Kenyan and Ethiopian.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon.
No, definitely not. I was gonna say if you've watched anything recently, especially a lot of the people who like the current record holders, um, like they're still looking strong. It's not like okay, it's the end of their rope. This is their last chance to make something. It's like no, they're looking good. I mean, Calvin is young, right? He's like in
Yeah, we're
his
going to get to
early
him.
20s.
Yep.
Oh, we'll get to him. Okay. I'm just jumping the gun on people here.
Yeah, and sorry, my voice is giving out too. So, but
Spreading the
we're getting to the stuff that anyone else in the world cares about. The stuff I cared about was the first stuff, the history. I love that stuff. Now we're going to get into sort of training areas, right? So let's start with some training tips. So number one training tip is build up your mileage slowly, right? So you're as a coach, right? I think there's some rules out there to try to follow, but I guess this thing I would say first is, there's an assumption that you've got some kind of like base level of fitness. So if you haven't run at all in 10 years, don't go out the first week and do 20 miles, right? So I think there's some, not that you even could, or there are probably some genetic freaks that can, but most people cannot. Um, So I think, most of those rules, like don't increase your miles by more than what, like 10%.
Yes,
It's one of
10%
the,
is, it depends again, but yes, 10% is usually what you want to go with, especially in like a marathon training, just because of like what the mileage looks like for us regular runners. That is a safe way to build it up.
yeah. And I think, because you caveated it well, which is that I think you got to look at the situation, right? If you're running 2 miles a week, you can't limit it to a 10% increase because you're not really at a base level of fitness. So you got to be able to go out and run, whether it be 3 to 5 miles at a time. Once you can achieve that and you can do that a few times a week, then I think you're at a point where now you're doing, 10 to 15 miles a week. Now you can then say, okay, that's my base. Now I can start working from that base and moving the miles up. So I think that's important to say. You're not necessarily limited to a 10% increase when you're really trying to just develop your base. Find out what your base is first, get that down, and then you can work from there.
Yeah, and the same can go with like high mileage runners too, right? You might not want to, if you're running 80 miles a week, you might not want to start adding 8 miles into your week, right?
Yeah.
So that's just another thing, is like it kind of really depends, but it does work really well for us kind of in the middle with like anywhere between 10 miles a week to 30 miles a week. It does kind of make a good sense as the number to increase by.
Yeah, because I would think, just for perspective, I was doing for all of 2023, for the most part, I was doing 40 miles a week. I then at the end of the year decided I was going to go up to 50 miles a week. I did that for about a week and decided that was, it was actually too much for me. Just doing that, lifting, mobility, I was just really drained after that week of doing 50. So I've cut back to, less than 40 at the moment, but I'll ramp it back up to between 40 and 50. So that's sort of number one, is just sort of build your miles up slowly. The second thing about training is, in my opinion, is it's critical to track your weekly mileage, right? So it is important to say, what is my weekly number? So, a lot of times most programs are built around either I'll call it a 12 to 20 week program. They are usually pretty structured for a week to week total growth. There are some periods where they sort of do a step back and step down maybe every third week to reduce the mileage to give your body a bit of time to recover. But it's important to track your miles week over week and have a weekly goal. Um, to give you perspective, like I said, mine was like sort of 40 miles. Elite runners, they run like 120 miles. Um, so there's a pretty wide range. If you're just trying to get your first marathon done, you can do anywhere from, what do you think? What's the low end? Probably in the 20 to 25 range, probably at risk of not finishing the marathon. But, you get 25 to 30 in, you can probably get to a good program.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few people, even this past cycle, who were in probably around like high 20s, low 30s towards the end of before their taper, just because of like the way life kind of shook out before their run. Oftentimes, if you're thinking, it's usually more talked about in like the ultra coaching world too, but like if you're training for a 100 miler, that does not mean you need to be building up your long runs to 100 miles or something close to 100 miles, right? Like if you're running 100 miles in your week, your body's going to be pretty well prepared to be able to run that 100 miles when it's race day. So this is kind of something to think about.
Yep. No, no, that's critical. So in the marathon, so step one again, build your miles up slowly. Two, track your miles on a weekly basis. We'll get to the mix of those miles in a few minutes. Um, so that, tracking weekly so you can see your progression, you can see what your progressive overload is each week. The number three thing that you need to do in marathon training that I think is the most important is long runs. So that is a critical component of of the training, is time under tension. So getting used to running, usually there's a 20-mile run in most marathon training programs. You usually have one long run a week. Sometimes it's not necessarily a very long run because it's a step back week. Um, but it's usually progressing, 10 to 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 miles is your long run. And again, that's just to get your body used to being on your feet that long, going at that tempo for that period of time. And then the hope is that you can leap from that 20-mile training run to that 26-mile race. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to add to that one?
No, I mean the long run really is critical besides just like the obvious, right? Of like we need to be practicing running long distances, we're gaining that endurance, we're gaining all those things, but you're practicing what your fueling technique is. Does it work for you when you are running farther and you're getting tired? Do you have enough water? I had a few people this past cycle too who were like, I thought I packed all my water. As I'm getting into miles 16, 17, I realized like now I'm downing water much faster or whatever it was, right? So it's like things you need to be testing out, how things are going. When do you need to plan your bathroom breaks? Are your shoes going to be causing problems as time goes on? Are they going to be causing problems with the socks you're wearing? I mean, really, as I'm like, listing every example, but you are testing out things that are going to be more race day specific as well. Or if it's, some races don't allow headphones. Okay, so I like to run with headphones. I need to practice a couple runs running without my headphones to see where my brain's at. I can't wear a vest at some races. I like to, wear my running vest, getting to practice how I'm going to be holding all of my items, like those kinds of things too. So it doesn't just prepare your body physically, but it's also preparing you just for all the things you need to work about. And then also preparing mentally. It's a great time to practice whatever mental strategies you're going to use as you're getting into your marathon, because some of it's going to feel so much faster when you're in your race. So you don't have to worry about like the entire 20 miles of what am I thinking about, but it is good to practice. I'm like, now my brain is scrambled, but it's good to
No, yeah, I
practice
think you
what
nailed
you're
it, right?
thinking about, right?
No, yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think I stress the physical aspect of it, being on your feet, being used to run the 26, and that's a sort of again, what comes to my mind initially is the most obvious thing, but you're right. I think it's really using those long runs as your dry run race, and to get your nutrition and hydration strategy down. Like, you don't want to decide what am I going to eat the day of the race as I'm running for the first time and not having tried it out. You don't know how your body's going to react to eating something while you're running. So you want to get used to that type of stuff. And the same thing with clothing. You mentioned shoes, but yeah, clothing as well. Get used to just trying things out. Some things work. In fact, this past run, for some reason, I had my shorts on. I had the phone in my pocket, and it just began rubbing my leg. I have a massive blister on my leg from this 13-mile run. It was hurting. I'm like, okay, I don't know what happened. I think it's because I had food in there as well. It was pushing my phone against my leg. But again, something I hadn't practiced before. I usually have that vest on, um,
Yeah,
but didn't wear the vest. I decided last second, I don't need a vest. I'm just
that was a
going to drink the
mistake.
water. Yeah, big mistake. So I continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. But yeah, you nailed it. With those long runs, that's the things you're sort of focused on. So that's really a key part of your marathon training. Number 4 on my list is incorporating variety into your workouts, right? Besides the boredom factor, that you're trying to get, you're trying to avoid, you want to make sure, the majority of your runs fall into the easy category, right? So we've talked about 80-20 many times, and every elite runner and novice runner should be following the 80-20 rule, which is 80% of your mileage should be sort of at an easy pace. And those long runs fall into that same category. That would be an easy run, easy pace that you're sort of following. But you do want to get other types of runs in as well. They may be tempo runs, threshold runs, um, interval type training, hill training. There's a lot of different types of runs you can do. But you can also do cross training, right? So in addition to, if you've reached maybe your weekly mileage, but you still want to get some cardiovascular benefits, you may want to do some cycling or some swimming. So there are a few things you can do that, add variety into your training, but won't put an unnecessary strain on your legs that could result in injury. And they may actually make you stronger to help you prevent injury. I don't know if you have much more on that one. I tried to cover all of that one.
Yeah, no, I think you crushed it on that one. Yeah, and I mean, some people can sustain minor injuries that don't completely like derail your training. And that's where those easy runs are going to come into play. The cycling, different kinds of cardio also, because you can, again, I had someone who sprained their ankle. It was probably like 3 weeks before we were going to start tapering for a marathon this year. And yeah, we had to switch everything to biking and doing some lifting that didn't involve like even standing on the foot. And then she had a great race. So
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
definitely not what we were thinking, but, felt good the whole time. Didn't really have too many issues with the ankle, during the run, and, yeah, so there's things you can do with cross training that add some variety as well. But, yeah, those speed workouts are important too, because as we are running fast, we usually are running with better form, so it's really just helping with our efficiency, running mechanics, path of movements with our body, which is always gonna be helpful to reduce injuries. Usually we have a better running cadence if we're running fast. That helps us as well. And then also for people who, I mean, there are some people who are going to run that same easy pace, even in a race or whatever. But for us who are going to be trying to step up the pace, race a little bit for our run, you want to be practicing that pace or faster, right? So your body actually is used to, so you don't immediately panic like, oh my gosh, I'm running so fast, right? So it's just another reason why those things are super important.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, right? It really depends on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. If this is your first marathon, you have limited time you can dedicate to training. Like, hey, I've only got 4 days a week I can train, and I've only got 1 hour each of those days. What should I do? My advice would be, well, nothing's going to make you a better runner than running. So if I've only got 4 days I can do, I'd probably say I would run on those 4 days. And again, you as a coach may disagree. It now, if I've got a fifth day, that's when I sort of say, okay, maybe I'm going to add in some either strength training or cross training or other things that may help me, or speed work or other things. But yeah, this probably depends on what your goals and objectives are. If it is just to, hey, I just want to get out there, I want to finish my first marathon, I have limited time to train, what's the best thing to do? And whether it's 3 days of running, 1 day of cross training, or 1 day of strength training, or 4 days of running, there may be a bit of a nuance in there, but certainly running initially, you've got to get a base amount of running in because that's what you're going to be doing. And then if you have some extra time and you're trying to really enhance your overall, either prevent injury or enhance your performance, that's when I think you can get into some of these other things.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I always think people should do a little bit of strength, but like you said, you might, if you only have 4 days to work out, you might make all 4 days a running day. And then you might just be doing some strength training while you're like watching TV or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, that's good because next on my list was strength training, where again, strength training I think is critical. And the question is it going to, if I didn't do it, is it going to prevent me from finishing a marathon? Yes and no. I think strength training, in my opinion, will one help you prevent injuries. Number one, so that may help you get to the finish line. But two, it's probably going to help you, perform better. It maybe your muscles will not fatigue as quickly. You will be stronger overall from a body composition and health. It's the right thing to do, right? So long term, strength training is critical to longevity. So I'd say for that reason, do it. Um, for a marathon, again, it goes back to, and by the way, as you were just indicating, strength training has a lot of different forms, right? It doesn't have to be going to the gym and doing weightlifting, right? It can be isometrics, it can be body weight training, it could be air squats, it can be lunges, it can be push ups and sit ups. There's a lot of things you can do, yoga, plyometrics. There's a lot of things you can do that fall into sort of that strength training category. If you have time, do it, please. It's good for your life in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say, totally agree. And you have to do strength training.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see you cringing when I'm saying you don't have to do it.
I cannot endorse the idea that you don't have to do it. But again, it doesn't have to be, today is strength day. Like you said, it doesn't have to be today. You go to the gym, you do a bunch of lifts, whatever. Again, it might be really helpful for some people. And again, depending on your goals, it might be necessary, but you definitely have to do some kind of strength, some kind of hip strengthening. Your feet need to be strong. As someone who spent, I don't know how many years never doing strength, like didn't do a single thing of strength and ran. But anytime I tried to run more than like 5 or 6 miles, had a knee issue, had a foot issue, had a shin issue. And I was just like, oh, that's weird. Running gets you hurt, right? No, not being strong gets you hurt. And now as someone who has all kinds of body issues, I have to strength train to be able to run. So just to keep everybody safe, you should always at least have a little bit of strength training, whether you're old me who only got hurt if I tried to up my mileage, but it's because I didn't do strength training, or your current me who can barely get out of bed without doing strength training. You got to do it.
Yeah, so I mean, from a life standpoint, I gotta agree. I mean, strength training is something you should do. Probably even, I mean, a debate whether in a long-term life, what's more important, cardio or strength training. But hopefully, you don't have to choose, because I think both are critical to longevity. To being 90 years old and being able to walk still, that's critical, and not using a walker and a cane. Strength training is critical to that stuff. All right. Um, let's go with rest and recovery as number 6 on my list. Um, and I sort of rank these in. So I think people underestimate the importance of rest and recovery, especially in for marathon training. How important it is, right? It may not be as important for your 100-meter dash, track and field events, but for marathon training, there's a lot of abuse you're putting onto your body with running a long run when you're running 16 miles a day, not a day, but in one particular day when you're running 16 miles for your long run. It puts a lot of stress on your body, and then you add lifting and other things to it. You may even add your own life stress, whether it be work, home, emotional stress that you may be going through. All of that is stress on the body, and it needs time to recover. And so the first and foremost, sleep is number one on my list for recovery. You'll get your best bang for your buck by having high quality and the right duration of sleep, whether it be 7 to 9 hours. So somewhere in that range. Second on my list was nutrition and hydration. Obviously, it's critical too. You've got to eat, but you also got to eat right. You got to give your body the carbohydrates it needs to fuel the muscles. You need the protein to repair the muscles. So there's a lot of things you do need. So you need a balanced nutrition. If you're dehydrated, your body's not functioning at its optimal efficiency. So you need to have that as well. And then try to minimize the other stresses in your life while you're going through the marathon training. And then all of the marathon training programs, they all build in some version of a rest day, whether it be 1 or 2 or 3 rest days, depending on the program. Again, those are critical to take advantage of. Rest day doesn't mean necessarily lay on your couch all day. It does mean you can go out and move, do things. It's good for you. You can even do a little bit of like walking and core exercises, things that aren't necessarily breaking your body down, that still may be helping with mobility. Any more you want to add on that one?
But also,
A
if you
lot.
have the ability to do nothing and lay on your couch for rest days, do that.
No, don't do that. Don't ever lay on your
do
couch.
do that. Lay on your couch for a whole day. That's fine. Yeah, no, I think that was great for rest and recovery. Just one thing to add, lots of people, especially us runners, we love to have like little cheat codes or extra little things like our foam rollers, our
Yeah.
whatever those guns, the Theraguns, and the compression inflatable like pants. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah. No,
Why am I
yeah.
blanking on that word?
Around the calves, it's inflatable. Yep. The compression
Yes, those
things, boots,
ice.
compression boots. I'll call
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Those ice baths, uh, magnesium lotion. I mean, we love all those things, right? But that does not make up for lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, and the mental toll that like life can have on us. And I'm trying to minimize those things in our brain. So just kind of pointing that out. It is fun to have all those things. They can definitely help to some extent. But if you're not sleeping or eating right, it does not matter.
Yeah, it's the big rocks. The big rocks are the sleep, nutrition, hydration. But you're right. There are 10 other things you can do, and may be great if you have if you have some muscle soreness or you have um, some injuries that you're trying to get past, that foam rolling may be ideal for that stuff. So it may be a great thing to add in, but the big rocks are the sleep and nutrition. Number 7 on my list is now we're getting into thinking about pacing and strategy. I think you do need to think about that before you get into your race. And again, it depends on what your objective is. If your objective is to just get out there and finish your first marathon, that's awesome. And from your long runs, you probably will have a sense as to what your right pace would be, because if you're running like an 11-minute mile in your long runs and you're feeling like, okay, I don't know if I could have gone much further, then you're probably in the 11 to 11 plus in your race day strategy. Don't go out and say, well, I can run 10 for the first half and then I'll see from there, because you won't finish. Um, so yeah, I think you want to get a sense on what your right pacing is. Um, and you really want to be conservative in that first half of that run, of that race, and then decide, okay, I feel really good. Now let me start to pick up my pace a little bit, and so I can now better judge how much I have left in the tank and how much further I have to go. That's hard to judge when you've got 25 miles to go, and there's a lot of enthusiasm, excitement at the beginning of a race. And this race I just went to, like, there are people that were walking after the first mile. I mean, I don't know how. Again, I don't want to throw a lot of shade on people because I don't know what the situation was, right? But it's like, man, how if you're in mile one and you're already like, I'm broken. I got either 25 to go if they were a marathoner, or 30 or 12 to go. That's rough. That's a rough situation to be in. Yeah.
First of all, do not shade the run walkers.
Oh,
What are
no,
you
I did
doing right
not.
now? That is our audience.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I'm just shocked at, like, okay, wow, something must have really happened, because they went out hard, because I didn't catch
yeah,
until the mile part, right? So it took me
right.
a mile to get to them, and I do start all the way in the back, but still, they ran the first mile, but they obviously didn't feel that, but they weren't feeling it that day, so they didn't walk from day one or from step one.
Yeah, it's definitely would be a bummer to be broken at mile one, unless that is their running strategy. I know
Oh, that could be,
there's a
yeah.
lot of people who do, like, the run a mile, walk, whatever. I recently had someone finish their marathon who was doing like 8 and 2 intervals. So it can be your strategy.
You can. By the way, so I'm going to apologize to everyone out there. Don't send your letters or emails to Victoria or Tori.
Yes,
Just, you
don't
can
send
send
them
them
to
directly to
me.
me.
Jeff's a hater.
Yeah. Yes, I can be banned for a week next week on probation.
But but yeah, I mean, your racing strategy is obviously going to depend on how you feel in the moment, but also like what you'd been planning for, like you had said. So if you're doing those long runs at that comfortable to moderately comfortable pace, you're looking at a minute and a half to probably 2 minutes faster on race day. Hopefully, if things are going well, if you're kind of just like suffering through to try to get to that finish line of all of your runs, which hopefully that's not how you've been training, but if that is, then you're probably looking at similar pacing, right? And yeah, like you said, starting off slow, and it's pretty easy. It's easy to get caught up, obviously, in a race because the adrenaline, it's exciting. There's so many people
Mhm.
running different paces, but also a lot of these big races are congested. It's going to hopefully be easy to also stay slow. So you do want to start out slow. Until you really get into that, into middle, early, before the middle, probably like 5, 6, I don't know, miles. And then you're looking at trying to settle into that comfortable pace that you've been planning for, the pace that you had worked for, that you were really running those tempo runs in, maybe. And then, yeah, last 6, you don't even really notice they're there. If you're feeling good, go for it. If not, whatever. I imagine elite athletes have completely different plans, and if they're listening to the show, they're not here for the running advice. So everyone who's listening, that's probably a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was my plan. I mean, I ran my, yeah, I think you nailed it, right? Because my training for an easy run is about 9-minute miles, and my sort of half marathon pace is 7.5, so a minute and a half faster. Um, my first half was around 7:45, 7:40 range per mile, and my last half was in the 7:20 range. So yeah, so it worked out. It worked out pretty much as I sort of planned. Doesn't always go that way, as we've talked about before. There have been many races I've been on the edge and then got broken with 5 miles to go. So it can go either way on you. Tapering is a critical part of a marathon training program. I think I probably don't taper as much as many other people do, but I think the programs usually lay out like almost like a 3-week taper for a marathon, where it sort of eases out, week one, week one of that 3 week taper, maybe 10% lower mileage, and then 25% lower mileage, and then maybe almost 50% or 40% lower mileage. So it varies on by program, but that tapering is really putting less miles on your body for that last 2 to 3 week period so that your body can recover and be its strongest on race day and ready to dig deep and have all of its energy stored up and ready to go.
Yeah, and like you said, a 3 week taper for marathon's pretty common. And it is a gradual reduction. It's not like you hit taper time and all of a sudden it's like, I'm not running anymore, which I'm kind of confused why I hear runners all the time being like, oh my gosh, it's taper time and I'm freaking out. What am I going to do? And it's like literally the same thing that you've been doing, just like
Mm.
slightly less and then slightly less. And then you're like, I'm ready to rest because it's race week, right? So I'm kind of confused on the whole like panic on taper, but yeah, you are reducing slowly. Typically you're cutting out those like strength days and things like that about 10 days out. I try to have people kind of cut those out mostly just because again, you know, you're not going to be getting those benefits from that strength in race day, so it's like why make your body more tired. So yeah, that's tapering. Don't
That's
panic.
tapering. Yeah. Um, Number 9 on my list was mindset and mental toughness. I think you may have mentioned it before about just being strong in the long runs. So I think that's really where a lot of this comes into play. But when you think about race day, I think you have to think about the fact that the race is a lot of times longer than maybe what you've run to date. Two, it may be at a little bit of faster pace than you've run to date, so therefore your heart rate may be higher. It may be challenging to you more so than just your typical long run. Um, and then there may be good times and bad times during your run. So where it may feel like, wow, I feel terrible at mile 6 and I've got, 20 miles to go. Don't get demoralized, right? There's a lot of times where just, your body's just getting used to it. It tends to adjust and suddenly you're at mile 8 and you feel much better. You don't have that little nagging pain that was in your knee or your foot or just the whole fatigue factor maybe just doesn't feel the same, 2 miles later. So don't get discouraged, but be prepared for that. Be prepared to be challenged. Be prepared to dig a little deeper than you normally would. Um, you know, a marathon, a lot of it is a mental challenge as much as a physical challenge. Um, a lot of times your body can certainly go further than your mind wants you to go, and your mind will find every reason under the sun to tell you to stop. It's, hey, doesn't your toenail hurt? You better stop. You better slow down, or your toe's gonna fall off, or your toenail's gonna turn black. Your mind, it's almost like a separate entity during a run. It's trying to convince you to stop. It will feel so much better if you just slow down and stop. It just keeps telling you that, but you got to ignore it and be prepared to say no. The reward, the disappointment I'm going to feel from stopping is so much greater than the pain I'm going to feel from continuing on. So that's really the mindset you have to have.
Oh, totally. I mean, I love talking about visualization. I think everyone should do it. If you visualize something like your race, your brain actually thinks it's done it before. So it does just make it so much easier for you to feel prepared, feel calm, feel at ease. And don't just picture like, I'm at the start line. This is what I look like. I look cute before I start. I look great at the finish, whatever it is. Picture those different mile markers. Picture when you're going to be taking in your fuel. Picture how you think you're going to be feeling at this point. Picture yourself in a low moment and how you're going to be continuing on feeling not so great. And then picture yourself obviously having great moments too, but you really want to be visualizing a lot of those. If you know what things are going to look like, picture what things actually are looking like, but then also picture how you're going to feel when you're going to be picking up your pace, what that's going to feel like. Okay, my heart rate's now spiking because of whatever reason. How am I calming myself down? This is how it feels. So you don't have like those panics of like, now my toe feels kind of funny. It's like, no, I know that when my toe starts to rub on my shoe, it does. I do feel this weird pain. I am fine. It's going to be okay as I continue to cross the finish line. Um, Not to ignore major injuries, but like little tiny things, like some stuff is going to start to nag. Your shirt's going to start to feel funny, whatever it is as you're sweating. So just things that you should be prepared to think about. And yeah, you said the positive self-talk. Picking a mantra and practicing that's again something you can do during your long runs. They've also studied that if you say in your head, you can do it, or you are strong and you use you instead of I, your brain likes that better. So trying to make it that way as if someone's talking to you. And also focusing on the positive. I know some people who like to do things like, like, you're not a wimp, don't quit, blah, 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 blah. Which is fine if that works for you. There is thoughts that your subconscious really sticks more to like the words. So if it's, it's also usually talking about written down things, but I imagine said things are the same too.
Yeah.
But if it's, wimp and quit, that's what your brain is now thinking about, wimp and quit in your subconscious, right? So you want to stick to those positive thoughts or what you want to actually be doing. So like strong, I can do it. I finished a marathon. I'm a runner, like those kinds of things. So just other kind of tips to think about
Yeah. I don't know if
with mindset.
you may have touched on this subtly, but the other thing is just your why, right? There's a reason people signed up for a marathon, and there's a why, right? It's because you wanted to challenge yourself, or your friends had done one, and you wanted to join the club, whatever it is. There's some kind of why that you decide to go do it. So just kind of remember that when the times get tough, that you really wanted to do this, and it's not that far away. It's still another, whether it be 30 minutes or an hour of discomfort you're going to have to go through to get to that why. But just keep thinking of why I want to do this. This is the reason why. Let's just keep going through this. It's not going to be easy, but that's what I signed up for.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Yeah, number 10 on my list was hire a coach. Now again, you may disagree. I'll say a coach is a I think a coach is a great thing to have, right? Number one. I don't think we disagree with that. The coach is there's a lot of marathon programs out there that people can follow. What I think a coach brings to the table is that independent perspective. Um, to sort of adjust accordingly, listen to what you're telling them, and adjust the plan, to be a sounding board for the challenges, to give you feedback on your running form. So there's a lot of things that a coach brings to the table that, may help you. Again, can you do a marathon without a coach? Yes, you can. There's no doubt. But if you have the opportunity to get a coach, I think there's certainly benefits in having one. I think if you certainly look at all of those, certainly the elite athletes and a lot of even I'll call it middle of the road athletes. I have a coach. Tori's my coach. But I think Alan, you've had on a number of times. I've listened to his podcast. He has a coach that provides him feedback and
Yeah,
insight.
he is a
So
coach and he has a coach.
yeah,
So
exactly. Right. That's the way it works. So that's number 10 on my list. So the next section was pitfalls, and we are running long, but we're gonna keep going. Is that
okay.
you good?
Yeah, that's good. Josh is still not home yet. So
Okay. So pitfalls, and there's a lot of overlap between pitfalls and training tips, right? So I think the number one pitfall that I think people have in marathon training is overtraining. Um, and there's sort of tied to that as number two on my list is insufficient recovery. Now it's a little bit different, but I'll start with overtraining. Overtraining, obviously, I felt that the one week I did the 50 miles. I also did, 3 lifting workouts that week. I also did 3 mobility workouts that week. And again, I'm retired, and that's all I was doing. Um, but it's pretty easy to overtrain, to go out there and run every day, run a little bit too hard, to push your heart rate from an easy run to a moderate to hard run. And that's all it takes. If you're doing you're supposed to be doing 3 easy runs, and you did, 1 easy run and 2 hard runs, your body's much more fatigued. So that's why those easy runs are critical, is to try to avoid that overtraining. And with overtraining usually comes injury. Is the biggest thing. And it's not like I'm going to get some great benefits. No, I'm actually going to have to be sitting on the sideline for 2 weeks, 3 weeks to recover, and now start my program all over again.
yeah, and overtraining, like you said, it can happen so easily. It can be doing too long of long runs, increasing your mileage too quickly, doing too fast of runs. It can even be like people, this is why having a coach is helpful, right? Like you have to shuffle your runs around because you missed a day or you were sick or something, and you start putting all, I did my speed workout, then my tempo, and then my long run all together. And it's like, now you're just doing too much running in a short period of time. So all those things can happen so easily. But yeah, really don't help you in any way.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell when you're overtraining, right? That the best thing is to listen to your body, but that's difficult because am I saying I don't want to run today because I'm just fatigued, I'm overtrained, or
Right.
am I just mentally not ready to go today because I'm stressed? It is difficult to know whether you're overtraining or not. But there are times I've sort of noticed that I've gone out to do a run and I'm like, man, it is way harder than it should be. And I realize, okay, I ran probably really hard the day before. Yeah, I shouldn't have lifted this morning. It's like, okay, I'm going to cut this one short. I'm going to recover a little bit and get back at it the next day. So uh, tied to overtraining, as I mentioned, was insufficient recovery. I do think it's a little bit different because you can be training properly and then still have an insufficient recovery, right? So you're not necessarily overtraining, you're just not recovering properly. You're not getting the amount of sleep you need. You're not eating properly. Maybe you're traveling for work. There's a lot of things that sort of come into insufficient recovery. But that's like sort of one of the other big pitfalls is in a marathon training program is just not getting sufficient time to recover. Take advantage of the rest days; they're in there for a reason, as we talked about. But be mindful of what else you have going on in your life, and try to balance that as best you can to recover from the training that you have done.
Yeah. I mean, the
Okay.
reason the joke is that marathoners only talk about running marathons is when you're training for a marathon, it does kind of take over your life, right? Like you do have to dedicate a certain amount of time to it to be able to safely run that distance and run it well. So it kind of makes sense that it does become all you can think about and talk about.
Yeah, very much like CrossFit and everything else in this world. But I will say
True.
this may be my last year or two of marathon running. I'm thinking because I do feel like that's all I do right now is
Uh-huh.
like is think, eat, drink about what am I running today? What am I running? What am I lifting? What am I eating? And it becomes very selfish. You just become very self-absorbed in what you're doing, and you ignore everything else that's going on in the world around you. So I am thinking about okay, after this next year or two, I may have to cut back. I'll still run and do all those things, but not marathon. Just takes it to the nth degree. Plus, it's not anything you do to an extreme is goes from healthy to unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
You know,
That's why I ask all
bodybuilding.
our guests about balance.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, we'll get to that another day. I'll announce my retirement in 2 years. Um, Number three on my list, you'll be happy to hear this one. Ignoring strength training
There
is
you
one of the bigger
go.
pitfalls. Yes. Um, I know you're a big advocate for strength training, even though I say you can skip it.
Yes.
If it's your first marathon and you only want to finish it and you have limited time, that was
Do
mine.
your strength training because you're going to
Just
have
like,
knee problems.
all right, so don't ignore strength training. Um,
Ever.
Number four on my list is inconsistent training. So what do I mean by that? That means like, we talked about like, you get busy, you get sick, you got to travel for work for a week. So your training looks like, oh, 30 miles this week, no miles next week, 60 miles the week after, because I'm going to make up for the fact I missed all last week. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
jump a week ahead of my training program. So that,
Yes.
being consistent is probably is the most one of the most important things, right? Because that's what gets you to the finish line. Is that additive effect of every day doing something that's incrementally adding to the day before, the day before, the day before that. So each of those weeks building on the prior week. And when you're inconsistent, you're not building on a strong foundation of the prior week. You didn't do anything last week. Again, I realize life is busy. A lot of things happen in this world. I'm dealing with the ideal, but as best you can, try to be consistent, try to get those 3 runs in that week that you have planned, even if you have to move them around a little bit. Um, you know, it takes some finagling. As you just said, right? It becomes the most important thing in your life. It's got to be the most important thing in your life, almost. All right, don't skip your workouts.
No.
Um, Number five on my list, you'll also like this one, even though this is one I said you didn't have to do necessarily. Ignoring cross training is one of the other big pitfalls. Um, as you pointed out before, right? It's such a complement to running, right? It's designed to whether it be enhance your cardiovascular system, strengthen your legs, um, just giving you more time, working on skills without pounding your legs while you're running out there every day. So, cross training is critical to doing something like that. Again, if you don't have the time, I'd say that would be the first thing I would cut out. But it's important to do if you can.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree.
What's the best cross training exercise you recommend?
I mean, I have most people always do yoga, kind of no matter who you are, what you have access to, because you can do it anywhere. Um, but also you're getting to practice. I think I've talked about this before. You're practicing your breathing, you're practicing your mobility, you're practicing mindfulness, all things that are going to help you as well. And then, depending on what kind of yoga practice you're doing, you can get that cardio, you can get some strength, your tendons and everything's just kind of working. And it's only really helping give you energy instead of taking energy away. So, yeah, I always say yoga, but then second to that, I'm a cycling person. I think that one is always a fun one, and can really help and be different, but also not so different that you're like, okay, I can run for an hour, but I can't cycle for 5 minutes. Whereas I think a lot of people will have an experience of, I can run for hours. You put me in the pool and I can barely get to the other side because I haven't been swimming. So it really can just be a whole different thing to adjust to, which, depending on what you want to do, totally fine. But I feel like cycling, people don't have that much of a disparity often.
Yeah, no, it does translate well with running. It does. It seems like.
Yeah.
Well, you hit with I think with yogi, you probably hit number 7 for me with I'll go to poor nutrition number 6 first, but I think poor nutrition is another one of the big pitfalls. Just not having an adequate diet that's helping you sort of recover. The protein to repair the muscle, as I mentioned before, carbs to provide you the energy, healthy fats. So just having all those things in a well balanced diet, I think that's just sort of a given. Number 7, neglecting flexibility and mobility. I would think yoga would fall into that category. So
Mm-hmm.
I think ignoring those things tend to be a big pitfall where you really get into running. It's just such a repetitive motion. It can create imbalances in your muscles, um, and that can cause problems. So you do need to really step up your flexibility and mobility movements to sort of counterbalance that.
Yeah. And I mean, that can just lead to so many injuries. You're not even like, you have no idea where they're even coming from. I think it was one of the half marathons we did a long time ago where I was really having knee problems. And I finally went to get it looked at after that. And it was like a tight hip flexor, tight hip something, was causing too much pulling and my knee ended up like rotating. It was like a whole mess. And again, it's
I,
just because
re-
I like, didn't stretch.
I remember that when you did like sort of a home tape job
Yeah, it was really
around your
bad.
knee.
It's a mess.
It was a
So
mess.
don't be me
No,
again.
you limped the entire way. I can't
I
believe you finished it.
did.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm gonna just fly through the rest of these, right? So skipping mental preparation is another pitfall. We talked a little bit about that a minute ago. Um, and then failing to adapt to conditions, I think, is probably one of the other big pitfalls. I've fallen this one a number of times, which failing to adapt to conditions essentially means if it's hot outside, you have to adjust your pace. You have to adjust your gear. If it's cold outside, you have to adjust. For me, heat, your body generates so much heat, and when it's running, for me, if it's anywhere 70 degrees or warmer, my time goes down significantly. I just can't hold the pace anymore. I just can't get my body to cool down. So I think that's another big pitfall is just not considering the conditions, saying, "Hey, I'm a 7 minute miler," going out there and not changing when the fact it's 80-degree day.
Yeah, I just had a heart attack because Josh just got home and I didn't hear him, but I saw him on the baby monitor, and that was like the scariest thing of my life. Um,
And hopefully, baby James is still asleep too.
yeah.
He's not running around the living room while Josh comes in. Like, where is everybody? What's
Oh
going
my
on?
gosh, terrifying. We're like for sure at time at this point. I'm thinking it's a good-ish place to stop, and we'll
Yeah,
pick it up next week with talking about some common running injuries, even though I feel like we've kind of touched on them in different places. Talking more about race day essentials. And I'm sure there's a little bit more to talk. Oh, and then kind of going over all the runners that we mentioned briefly in the beginning.
This will be the
Um,
last time you put me in charge of putting one of these together.
no, this is great. Now we have like a little cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Keep people interested. I like it. Yeah, no, this was fun. And we will be back next week to talk more marathon.
Goodbye.
I forgot where the stop button was. There we
Did you hit
go.
it?
Okay. Where were we?
I think we're getting into mental health, but I wasn't
No.
sure where you were taking it.
Who knows? Me
Yeah,
either.
I was gonna jump in, but I'm like, I'm just letting you go because I don't exactly know how to jump in on this one.
Oh, I think I was talking about how because of the improvements in like shoes being not just like a one size
Oh
fits
yeah,
all.
that's it. That was you. Want to start from that spot, or you want?
Just gonna keep going. Being a parent is hard. But yeah, so shoes have so many different arch supports, cushion preferences, style of toe box. Like, and there's so many different things that they can offer in a shoe that can help support different injuries, ailments, things that people are working with that are making running not accessible to them, that now running is more accessible. So more people are able to run, more people are able to get that benefit of getting outside, moving their bodies, getting those endorphins. We've talked so much about how, adding a running routine can have drastic improvements in depression and anxiety symptoms and just kind of improve your overall mental health. So the improvements that they've made have really made it so running can positively affect people and their mental health. And, also like we're talking about Strava, right? The gamification of that kind of app or other apps like that does also make it more fun to keep being a runner. So, that also can have those improvements in the mental health. Obviously, I mentioned prior about like the downsides of, we can get really caught up in the wrong stuff and like, the social media aspect of everything. I've always complained about that. But there definitely are some positives that the invention of all the different gear and gadgets are really helping to help people be able to run, which is then inadvertently helping their mental health too.
Yeah, no, I certainly I wouldn't disagree with that. That by helping the masses, you help everyone's mental health. I think the part that I was focused on when I saw that section was, our is a either a shoe company, a fitness company, the therapy industry, like the people who have mental health issues, right? So it's helping the masses, and therefore the people who are able to exercise do get that benefit. But if you are someone suffering from mental health, how you need someone to partner up with you to get you out and get active. And that's what I haven't seen yet, right? Is how does the therapy industry, or do they need to, team up with a gym? Does a gym need to make availability based on recommendations from, therapists to get people who have mental health issues into the gym setting to get that activity? I think that's the difficult. It who right now who's benefiting from, who's going to pay for that, right? How is it going to get paid for? And if it's not a financial incentive for the therapist or for the gym company, there's got to be some incentive to help that, and it doesn't exist at the moment. Just a
Yeah.
just a comment.
No, I know. And I thought about that, before too, especially when I was starting the running club a couple years ago was, yeah, like how is there a way to, even just like on a small scale, right? As a running coach, team up with a therapist of like, how could, that you run into
You
issues of,
refer certain patients to me, and I'll give them a discounted basis, or some way to make it easier for them to go out and get that physical activity. That's what I haven't seen yet. But again, I'm not that close to it. Other than
right. No, there's like, and there's too many roadblocks with like HIPAA and all kinds of other things too. But yeah, there has to be some kind of relationship that can be built that way. Or, again, with our messed up healthcare system, being able to pay for like run coaching or shoes or something like that, right, to make it easier. But I'm sure we can go into a whole long debate about that. Maybe not debate, but discussion about that. Maybe we'll add that as a topic, how we can fix the problems of the world.
all
Um,
right.
as another podcast. But before we go, because I'm sure I'm gonna get interrupted yet again, you want to give us some rundown of some gear and technology, gear,
Yeah, yeah.
gadgets,
So
all the things.
yeah, yeah. So I was just when I was thinking about gear and technology, I was just going like top to bottom, like from head to toe. Where does this technology fit in? And so I'll just go from top to bottom, right? So at the head level, we talked a little bit about the sunglasses. I think is the only thing that in my mind is if I think about technology in the future, that feels like something that could be beneficial. I think the earbuds will get better and headlamps and stuff will all get better. But I think the sunglasses with the heads up technology could be something that would be cool, if not beneficial to runners, bikers, to be able to see their cadence and their data right away. As I move down the body, we're going to go to sort of the main part of the body. Doing the research for this, the one or two things that came up that I thought looked beneficial to me. There's a company out there, not to give a plug to someone because I don't know anything better about them, but Inside Tracker. The one thing that I thought was unique about them is they do a blood and DNA analysis for you, and they combine that data to say what nutritional needs do you have combined from either deficiencies in your blood or from your DNA markers that may say that your propensity to be short in certain nutrients, right? So they do set up both a sort of a training and nutrition type plan for you from that. So I thought that was sort of unique, a little bit different. I don't know how much from a DNA perspective your running performance, obviously it is impacted by your DNA, but that knowledge, how much of it could you actually change? I don't know. But it was interesting. And I did talk a little bit about, blood lactate analyzers. Today they're more like they were 10 years ago for blood glucose, right? So people who had diabetes just prick their finger 1,000 times and do a blood, touch the scanner to it and get a reading. And that's what you have to do now to do, lactate threshold testing. But for they now have continuous glucose monitoring that you can attach to your arm, and you can get that on a real time basis throughout the day and not have to do it by pricking your finger. To the extent that they can get that technology for lactate, then you can sort of be another data point. You can get real time while you're running where your lactate levels are. To me, that will be, again, I think it's talked about,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not there yet. That's something that if they do come up with that one, I might do that one too.
Yeah.
Um, didn't hit this one before, but red light therapy from a recovery standpoint, a lot of podcasts, they did talk about the studies on red light therapy and how it can help the mitochondria and help with recovery, both with injuries as well as just overall body recovery. Um, that is one where, again, I might look into a little bit more and maybe spend a little bit of money just on a little bit of red light therapy. I'm not saying it's going to help me grow hair again. If that is one of the benefits, I'm not doing it for that reason. Um, then we go to smartwatches. I think those will just continue to get better. I don't know that. I mean, what we is that the iPhone hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 5 years, 10 years, but smartwatches. I don't know. Could they get exponentially better in the next 5 years? I don't think so. One other item was a GX sweat patch. I thought was interesting. That one there that you attach it to your forearm, and it will do sort of an electrolyte analysis real time to show you what you need. So if you are short on sodium or magnesium or other things as you're working out, you'll know to do a liquid IV type thing to recover.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about shoes, shoes. I don't see anything else on the foot side. I mean, there are a lot of wearables on the foot to show you cadence, but in my opinion, I don't know, can they do much more than what the watch can do? Maybe it's a little bit more direct. Like you can see a little bit more of the force impact if you have a shoe wearable versus your watch, but I don't know that I see people getting those. And we talked a little bit about on the recovery side. I think they're the one that I hear on another podcast is a like sleep therapy and having a cooling device on your mattress to keep you cool while you sleep. There's some that are AI connected that will then monitor your sleep performance, so they'll know whether you're in deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, and they also will know what your tendency is to, whether it's to wake up or go further deeper with the temperature changes. So there are some out there that do that. That's another recovery futuristic type thing that's out there.
Wow.
That's it. That's my list. That's my list of, besides all of the thousand other things of journaling and socks and hats that are out there. I try to stick with the tech side.
Yeah, I feel like the list can be endless, right? We picked a very broad idea to talk about. But no, I thought this was good. Things I forgot to mention at the start of the episode, which sorry, because now I feel like no one's gonna hear it because the episode's basically over. But anybody who's a Spotify listener, which apparently there's not a lot of you, like 90% of the audience is Apple people, which I get it. I also listen to podcasts on Apple, but Spotify Wrapped just came out. So we got some fun data I didn't even get to share this with you because I just saw it today. From Spotify on the Spotify listeners. If you haven't listened to the episode with Sam from Recovery Ranch talking about his recovery journey, but also working at a recovery treatment center and running and how they incorporate movement, that was our most popular episode to date for 2023. So definitely give that one a listen if you haven't checked that one out. It was a great episode, right?
Yeah, way to go, Sam. Man, that's awesome.
I know, Sam is the best. And that was a really fun. I thought it was a great chit chat. He is so personable and shares, personal things about himself, but also seems really knowledgeable about what he does, passionate for the work that he does. Seems to know so many really cool people that he's met through his journey. So he talks a lot about running and walking and hiking and movement and yoga, and how those things are incorporated in addiction treatment and how that is helping a lot of the people at the treatment centers affiliated with the one he works at. So that's great. Definitely listen to that episode. Also our episode with, I guess this was just my episode with not Coach Joe that we recently interviewed, but Coach Joe from Running Wild Collective is our most shared episode for the year. So I guess that's probably one of the most listened to too, but people are sharing that one, which is great. So thanks, Coach Joe from North Carolina. I did not get to go visit her when I was there, but thank you for sharing the episode so much with all of your Running Wild people. Love it. And thank you everybody who listens and continue to listen. It sounds like we got a lot of new people in the past year. This was our first full year podcasting because it started in the middle of 2022. So it's been a fun year. Gained a co-host, have moved locations multiple times in my house. We've gone through a bunch of different iterations of style of episode, I think, with guests and then different kinds of chit chat. So we are still kind of continuing to workshop that, but the year's not over, but fun little shout
feels
out.
like this is like a year in review here. This is perfect.
Yes. Yeah. If you do like a Spotify, because I don't listen to music on Spotify either, but for people who listen to music there, they like go through all of the music you listen to or the podcast you listen to for the year on there. And give you like a lot of fun little data points. So I'll have to share because I think I wrote down a couple because I thought that it would be fun to share them with you. So I have to share them at some point. And then, next week, we're hopefully going to have a guest talking about ultra running and kind of creating community through running and running for goals outside of just outcomes. And I'm sure a lot of other fun things. So we'll have that for next week. And then moving forward, we have a couple episodes planned, but then again, always open to more ideas. Anybody who has guest recommendations or guests they can connect us with. We love to chat with other people. We just need to be pretty flexible because anybody who pays attention to the episodes, you're seeing that I am having to get up and back. So we have some hiccups sometimes with recording. So we like flexible people as well. I just kind of rambled on and on. Anything you have as we're closing out?
No, I think that was perfect. That was a good summary on technology, and I love the review on 2023. That's nice.
Yeah, and then we will be probably doing mostly regular episodes throughout the rest of the year. We may take a week or two off closer to the end of the year just to have a break from recording, do a little bit of, I don't know, podcast planning and maybe not podcast planning, doing anything else of the sort. So we'll see. But yeah, for right now, we plan to be regular episodes most of the rest of the year and then getting back into it, continuing through January.
2024 is coming.
2024 is coming. Wow. Thank you. This has been so fun.
Awesome. Bye-bye.